San Francisco or maybe even Venezuela might be a good example of this like anarcho-tyranny concept. So basically, Balaji says that crypto-anarchy is better than anarchy, and crypto civilization is better than but actually this anarcho-tyranny is maybe even worse than anarchy, because it's like it's tyranny for for the normal law-abiding people, and it's anarchy for like criminals, let's say like drug addicts who are like causing trouble on the street, and like let's say they are like they might be attacking someone, but the person who is being attacked, who is the victim, actually might get the fine instead, or like he or she they might get into trouble. I don't know. The media is like going after actually the victims of, I don't know, these crimes and not of the perpetrators.
Hello and welcome back to Mtambo's podcast. My name is Mtambo, and today I'm joined by Jakub Simek, a co-founder of Se2 and an author of Wisdom Enterprising. Jakub wrote an intriguing article on the concept of Anarcho-tyranny and its impact on the decline of San Francisco. Jakub, welcome to the show again.
Hi, Duke. Nice to see you. Good to see you.
Let's start by talking about the concept of anarcho-tyranny. Can you explain to our listener what it means and how it has contributed to the decline of San Francisco?
Hi, Duke. So, anarcho-tyranny is like the combination of anarchy for some people. Let's say for criminals, they have like they can do whatever they want on the streets and they are not punished. Let's say for breaking into cars, and tyranny for regular people who, let's say, get a parking ticket like tens of dollars for overstaying a couple of minutes, or like parking on a wrong side of the street. And so like that's what Balaji means by anarcho-tyranny. So it's like it can be basically abstracted or explained as a case of bad regulation in terms of like it's not smart regulation, but it's the analog regulator is for some reason having like a bad or high, like a false positive and false negative rate of like false positives and false negatives. So he's like punishing the wrong people and letting and let's say the bad people, he's punishing the wrong kind of people. So, and letting go of the criminals, or like letting the criminals to roam free, let's say causing trouble. So it's like the opposite of smart regulation. So it may be like, to make it concise, so the anarcho-tyranny is opposite to smart regulation. So it's not just like tyranny, let's say often like there is Snyder wrote this book like called On Tyranny. After Trump got elected, many people feared that America will slide into tyranny, like like many countries in like 100 years ago or something, they slid into tyranny. Like previously they were democracies, but let's say now that they got some dictators. But actually also Trump, and also like what's happening in the US, is like more likely the scenario also that Balaji is describing as the American anarchy. That's the more likely scenario, the sci-fi scenario. And it's basically because the wokes and also the Bitcoin maximalists, as a kind of emerging, at least according to Balaji, a new emerging kind of political movement that is operating on the network, and so the politicians are like downstream of this kind of like internet movements, And so you have the wokes and you have the Bitcoin maximalists. So it's like the left libertarians and the right libertarians, and they might be opposed to each other quite a lot. The Bitcoin maximalists, they hate the woke capital, like the ESG, and because and the other guys, they hate Bitcoin because I don't know, it's according to them it's like energy inefficient or expensive. We discussed it elsewhere that it's kind of misguided. It's much more energy efficient than regular legacy banks. But anyhow, just going back to the point, so you have these two factions that are actually quite that are opposed to each other, but the sum vector of their push is down on a political compass towards more anarchy, because like they're like left or right libertarians, and they're like tearing the society kind of apart, or like decreasing the trust. The societal trust, and kind of so the end result is like what you saw, like what we saw, like the riots of summer of 2020, like the BLM riots and protests, but combined with the January 6th, the Jan 6 kind of protests, and so if you see these, like, but you get like say 10x or 100x more frequent, so that's like the idea of American anarchy, like the sci-fi scenario of Balaji that he opposes to Chinese control. But like as you mentioned at the beginning, like the San Francisco or maybe even Venezuela might be like a good example of this like anarcho-tyranny concept. So basically Balaji says that crypto-anarchy is better than anarchy, and crypto civilization is better than but actually this anarcho-tyranny is maybe even worse than anarchy, because it's like it's tyranny for for the normal law-abiding people, know, and it's anarchy for like criminals, let's say like drug addicts who are like causing trouble on the street, and like let's say they are like they might be attacking someone, but the person who is being attacked, who is the victim, actually might get the fine instead, or like he or she they might get into trouble. I don't know, the media is like going after actually the victims of, I don't know, these crimes, and not of the perpetrators.
Or a good example could be also a working, say, class Uber driver would get, say, $60 parking fine for overstaying a few minutes, while a criminal who breaks into their car walks free, as the city has de facto, say, as de facto legalized, say, theft under, say, certain amount of money, or say, like, say, $950. So this situation creates a bad regulator with high false positive and false negative rates, which could lead like regular people get excessively punished while criminals walk scot-free. Yeah,
exactly. That's like the good summary of it. So right, like, so the criminals who break your glass and get and steal your, I don't know, something from your car, they are not punished because it's under $950, or like the local authorities are like overwhelmed by the crime wave, so they are slow to react, or just they don't have capacity to react to this level of crime. But if you are parking on a wrong side, you get excessively punished. But but it's kind of interesting, because let's say people normally think about like tyrannies, like, I don't know, like, let's say if you contrast it to Belarus, like, so Belarus is like I was there a couple of times. We were in my previous work, we were doing some projects there. Actually also like working with now you would call it like ESG, something like with local companies. But the country is kind of like, okay, autocratic or tyranny is for sure, and it's chasing away the creative people, like it's chasing away. But and it's kind of like it's like a museum of socialism, something like you could go there and you could see how let's say Czechoslovakia was before. It's like of course they are not. I mean, the state has a lot of power there, and the state has also lots of economy is under the state. I don't know how it's now, but it used to be like 70% or even more. And you have the state enterprises. But the idea there is like, okay, so it's kind of chasing away the creative people and or the tech people and the skilled people, but it's actually providing some kind of stability for the regular folks. Like you don't have graffitis there. It's like you can see that there is no. I mean, you get some organized crime, okay, maybe connected with the regime, but it's. But you get like safe streets. You can walk in the evening, and you don't get like this kind of, I don't know, let's say addicts like chasing you on the street and like shouting at you and like, I mean, threatening your family. But the case of like anarcho-tyranny is like kind of interesting, where you get like the worst from the both worlds. Like it's chasing away the creative people because like they are afraid of their lives, and it's also kind of like punishing the regular people. But it's also then what happens, it's like then also the just like regular people leave that country. It's like everybody's leaving, or that city. So it's like the case of Venezuela, like then it was like the kind of like a darling of the old left, like the Venezuela, the Hugo Chavez, and they were all like kind of celebrating Venezuela and what's happening there up to a point, and then it went off the cliff, and then you had like these Maduro diets, where people were like starving for a couple of months or so they lost like a lot of kilos or pounds, right? So okay, but it's like there is a lot of pain in the nation, or there is a lot of ruin in the nation, and so there is a lot of space for this to continue and go on decades, because like actually California is quite rich because of all these like big tech companies, Hollywood and media, and also San Francisco because of venture capital, and so it's like kind of, it can go on for a long time, and then but then there is like this external factor of like COVID and remote work, and suddenly the city sees the exodus of lots of like technologically talented people, because it had this kind of network effect, because of the venture capital was all based around the city, and so it was almost like it's called, what is it, the curse? It's like it's like when you have oil as a country, or some kind of like precious metal or something. So it's like resource curse is the term, so it's like almost like a resource curse. Okay, so California or San Francisco, they have a lot of like tech companies, so it's like in this data economy or internet economy. It's like they have these resources, and they have this resource curse, meaning like super bad government and governance compared to actually how rich they are. Like they could have had like super, I don't know, great governance, but actually that's like the paradox of the resource curse. So let's say DRC, like Congo, they have so much so much natural wealth, right? But because of that natural wealth, it's kind of like creating this kind of vicious circle of
Yeah, I think that's a great
super bad
example.
governance. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like what San Francisco is becoming. I mean, because they have a long way to go into, like, let's say, Venezuela kind of situation. But as we discussed before, like, you have these like digital death kind of moments, like with Silicon Valley Bank, where
Yeah.
you can go from 1 to 0 in a couple of days, or
Yeah.
with the city. It can be actually years, or months, because they have like 30% vacancy rate in
Mm-hmm.
commercial real estate, and there is some kind of building that was sold like 90% with the 90% discount.
Oh,
So.
wow.
Mhm. And
And
it's caused by this actually street crime. It might be like a low level kind of crime, like just people not feeling safe on the streets,
Mhm.
but it's caused by a bad, yeah, ideology. It's not caused by the lack of resources to pay policemen. It's bad ideology, actually.
what about like Europe? Like, is it Europe in a whole, or Germany? Like, regulating. They want to regulate, for example, AI, so that they can remain like the museum of values. To like
Yeah, it's like for retirees, like it's like a vacation resort for pensioners.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
the Europe. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny there. Yeah, on Balaji mentions it as well. On a couple of podcasts that Europe, the folks in the US, they try to ban advanced math, like to make everyone equal. So like math is racist or it's oppression. It's kind of like what they are saying is like, yeah, it's kind of dumb, but like not to be outdone, Europe tries to regulate logic itself, like, so, because some they are proposing some AI regulation, and basically they want to regulate algorithms and logic itself, like what is AI, and then there is some kind of like annex explaining the logic itself, so it's like yeah, I mean,
yeah,
and
but
they
as you normally say, like Europe are very good in terms of regulation, but they are very slow in terms of coming up with their own innovations.
yeah, and I don't think they are so good at regulation. I mean, they're trying to be good. Probably, I mean, they
They are
might
all
be more sensible.
analog.
Yeah, but they might be more sensible in some. But for example, the cookie banner regulation, the GDPR, it's kind of terrible. It's like making the whole world miserable. And actually, the only regulation that was like inspiring, let's say, for China, coming from Europe, it was actually in agriculture. It was like this geographical kind of geographical products, like. It's something
Mhm.
like a trademark, but like for your local produce. Let's say
Okay.
if you have like a champagne, so
Hmm.
champagne is from the Champagne region, so you can't call another sparkling wine champagne, but it needs to come from France, and it actually needs to come from like this special region. So I think that's the only kind of the EU regulation that is inspiring for the whole world. GDPR might be like I don't know, it's just like a pain in the ass for the whole world, but like they some might comply, or it's kind of like, but GDPR and this like agriculture, the geographical kind of terms,
Hmm.
or trademarks, or I don't know how is it actually called. That's the only thing maybe the 10 or 20 years that was kind of inspiring and I don't know, I might be wrong, okay, because like there is African Union, and I guess they are like being inspired by other things from the EU. So the currency, the euro, and some kind of other issues. So I don't want to be just like too negative, but considering, like, let's say China or the US, like what is how did Europe inspire the US or China? And so there are not so many examples.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
actually, like for example, what Germany is doing, like with going against nuclear power, like shutting off their nuclear reactors, is like from the eyes of Chinese or even like Slovaks, it's like super dumb, it's like that China is trying to bring online like 150 nuclear reactors in 15 years. Because like now they're relying on coal for like 60% of their electricity, and they want to reduce it. And actually what Germany is doing, it's kind of like really just stupid, it's just
going back.
It's going back. It's going back to coal and gas.
Actually, the president had another conversation with like a Sudanese British billionaire. It's called Ibrahim Mohammed or Mohammed Ibrahim. I think it was in this weekend, and they was talking about spearheading about the climate change, and he's like the president of the like I think 54 states in terms of the climate change as sector, and they're planning to have like a summit on the climate, African summit, just generally on around it will be around August. And he was saying like, these are the things. Some of guys who are pushing for the agenda of going green. They're the one also like, they're coming to say, for example, Africa, to tell them not to use the, say, coal, not to use the fossils, but at the same time, they are using it on the other side. So he was trying to say like, if we could have a balance whereby if you want to use, say, for example, the coal from Africa, then you have to pay for the damage that will cause, so that that country will benefit, So instead of saying like you guys should go like green and not utilizing some of the say fossils that we're having on the coal, but these guys, they are also increasing the climate. They're polluting the climate using the coal from the other side. So it doesn't make a balance at all, because you're still polluting. At the same time, people who are affected most are still in the African continent in general, and you are receiving less in terms of compensation.
I mean, that's true. I mean, these like energy poverty is real, and I think these like fossil fuels should be viewed as bridge fuels, so of course you want to go, like you want to get like more solar, and let's say if you have this like breakthrough in batteries, and batteries get cheaper, and you can have something like like the, what is it, the solar from the rooftop solar from Tesla, and the Tesla batteries, or some other companies like this from China, even like I mean European companies like these solar panel companies, they were beaten by the Chinese, and I don't know about the power wall, or the kind of like the battery companies from Europe. Like there might be some actually. Of course there are some, but like I don't know about any like compelling products, or like I think the Chinese are winning the race. So I think like if Europe wants to be the leader, they need to be the technological leader, not the regulation leader. But like what yeah, I mean, I think this criticism is correct, as you mentioned, because like, for example, Sri Lanka had this issue, like they defaulted and they were pushed into this like too much ecological agriculture, like bio fair trade, something, like, and especially also like too much of like against fossil fuels, but it's like they should be viewed as bridge fuels, like I mean, of course, I think Africa can leapfrog the West in many technologies, like with M-Pesa, with mobile. So so partially like these kind of view, let's say from Germany, or from the Western media, or Western, I don't know, regulators like OECD, it's kind of patronizing, and it's kind of like it's true, part of it, like maybe good faith, like they wish Africa could like leapfrog the West, but it's kind of, but as you said, it's kind of ingenious, or like not sincere when
and he's like, you're preaching water, but you're drinking wine, So
exactly, because like why is Germany using more coal and more Yeah. I mean, why they switched off their nuclear? I mean, doesn't make any sense. Now even Greenpeace Finland is like pro-nuclear. They changed like they because they see like what's happening with Russia. And so they basically, if you are against nuclear, you are giving leverage to all these countries that have like natural gas, and they are usually autocratic, if you don't count Norway or I don't know, Scotland. Like many of these like countries, they are not democratic, and you're giving them leverage, to sell you natural gas or to sell you coal and to sell. I mean, it's very, very sad, like what Germany is doing, and probably, and they're making the electricity more expensive for everyone by switching off
Yes.
for the whole Europe, because
It's
we could
true.
actually, like we have like nuclear power in Czech Republic, also in Slovakia, and if we like had like totally like national grid or something, we would have cheap electricity, and the Germans, and German companies, they would have expensive
True.
electricity.
Yeah.
If we had like because we could be self-sufficient, we are selling it to other countries, and Czechs are selling it to, and French companies are selling it to German. So like, I mean, if like super rich country like decides to switch off their nuclear power, it's just like, for what reason? It's just like to be
Yeah. And
basically to please these boomers who were growing up in the 60s, and they were against nuclear power. So that's like, just
yeah.
to please
And
the boomers.
and
Yeah, that's
and
the real
actually,
reason.
yeah, it actually raises another question. He was saying like, yeah, he was talking to one of his colleague. I mean, a state leader, like president of Uganda, and the president asked our president, okay, you are asking me to, or you are pioneer this Africa to go green and all that. Yeah, but we have resources, these fossils and all that. Yeah, until the person comes and explain to me why I should not stop using, say, fossils, and the other guys are using it, then it doesn't make sense to me, because them, they use, for example, the West use, for example, coal and fossils, to pioneer their manufacturing or their industrial, it was through those things, but Africa, there's no industrialization that much. So we are in that stage now. We're getting to industrialization, and we have a lot of resources which were used before by for example, the Western countries to develop their industries and all that. But right now, we are the African countries are being stopped from using the fossils, which would be the easy energy to get, because we already have the resources here, natural resources. But now, yeah, so his point was, he was arguing like, why, until the point where somebody can explain to me like, I should stop using this cheap energy to do the industrialization, and still they're still using the energy, but it still make a good debate.
No, but he's right, because like you should see these like fossil fuels as bridge fuel, kind of bridge fuel, to go against like more green energy. But you even to produce solar panels, you need fossil fuels. It's like
Yeah.
it's not out of thin air. So you need to think about them as bridge fuels. Like, I mean, it's possible that in a couple of years, it's like digital. If things will go digital, like let's say electric vehicles, like will become actually cheaper than the internal combustion engine vehicles. Like it's happening on some markets, like let's say in China,
Yeah.
probably, but it's trickles down. Like even no, okay, but it's really happening, like because. For example, there is this BYD. It's like the top Chinese automaker, one of the top electric, especially, and hybrid automaker, and they have this one model called Seagull, and I think it's like it costs like $11,000 in. It's kind of a small car, but not like super small. It's like, okay, it's like Toyota Yaris or something like that, even maybe bigger, and it's it costs like $11,000, and the range I think is like 300 kilometers, something like that.
Oh, wow.
It's not, yeah, but it's like a normal kind of normal car, and you can expect like these kind of innovations to continue. The range increasing with the new types of batteries, and the price dropping even further because of the economies of scale. So I do believe that Africa will again leapfrog Europe in like similar to like mobile phones. Many people didn't have landlines, but they went straight to mobile phones. So, but anyhow, you need fossil fuels to produce I don't know, solar panels. And actually,
Yeah.
Africa is already leapfrogging. I saw like solar panels like in Kivanjani,
Yeah.
in around Voi like 10 years ago, and people were using it because I mean
Mm-hmm.
that was, and it was like, now it's much cheaper, like than 10 years ago. So it's like but it's not, I think it's not either or, but you also need petrol, you need diesel. I mean, you need
Yeah.
because I don't know,
Even
for some kind of machines, it's just
even the
you know
battery for the electric cars still being, it's mining
yeah,
has
it's
taken
going,
place.
it's coming from Congo, right? Like
Yeah.
DRC, the
So we can't,
cobalt. Yeah.
yeah, we can't do really away with the fossil fuels, but we can reduce, the usage, and yeah, but we need to be in the same, in the same level when we are saying like we are doing this, we do it as a whole world, but not preaching wine, not preaching, I mean, preaching water and drinking wine.
Yeah, and also also like Bitcoin mining can actually stabilize the grid, so it can help like also like it can make like natural gas production, or I mean
Mhm.
extraction, or how you call it, more effective and like cheaper. And of course it's also stabilizing the grid, like, because it's like it's kind of acting
Yeah.
as a money battery, like and you have some kind of predictable demand, or you can like
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, so yeah, I
And
don't, yeah, I mean, there are other people who are like much more pro fossil fuels, but I think it's not like either or. It's like, it's, they're like bridge fuels, and of course it's like with EVs, or like with something like some digital technology, like yeah, of course, if it's gonna be cheaper and safer and more practical and easier to use and cooler, people will transition into EVs. Like now Teslas are like the kind of luxury
mhm.
product, and but they're becoming cheaper and cheaper. And the Chinese EVs, they're gonna be cheaper than and probably even like safer and more reliable, because they have like orders of magnitude less parts, like 100x less parts than the internal combustion engine.
Mhm.
So at the end, the better products will win. But I totally agree that you can't like make African countries to pay for your sins, for the Western sins of industrialization 100 years ago. And so they need to leapfrog technologically, and not in a like some kind of like yeah, it's not like moral innovation or moral progress, meaning like you should be just like people shouldn't industrialize or something like that. No, it's definitely, yeah, it should be like industrialization, like the fourth industrialization, or something like with automation, with robots. And I think it will be much cleaner. Like the clean energy is definitely part of the solution, but also fossil fuels are part of the solution. It's just
Okay, that's
yeah.
a nice, yeah, that was a nice off-topic discussion. So let's not come back again to the concept of anarcho-tyranny. So what do you think are the implications of anarcho-tyranny on liberal democracy, and how can we strike a balance between the chaos and the tyranny?
All right. I mean, it's just like the saying goes. I don't know who said it, that the liberal democracies dance between anarchy and tyranny, right? So it's like some kind of like it's like a delicate dance between anarchy and tyranny. So you want to have like enough enough creativity or enough not just like creative destruction, but like yeah, like freedom and security for creative classes to prosper and to create, let's say, to come up with new technological inventions, with new designs, new companies, with new cultural products, artifacts. But you also want to provide like security for everyone, not just like creative people, and especially you want to punish the criminals, you know. So it's like being a good like or smart regulator, and you also want to have like competition between smart regulators. So for example, you have like functioning societies where the high net worth individuals want to move in, so like let's say Singapore and Dubai, I don't know, Monaco, some other places, Hong Kong could be even, you know. And many of these places might not be like the traditional democracies, or they may be more autocratic. But at the end, or let's say El Salvador, you know, and many of these countries might have their issues, but ultimately it's like they are checked by the exit. So they, you know, they should be like selective, or they can be selective in terms of who they let into their country. So the immigration, you know, or the letting, you know, they can let just like the top talent into their countries, but they should, you know, the ethical thing to do is to let anyone leave who, let's say, okay, there are some exceptions, like let's say some convinced criminals, you shouldn't let them escape your country, you know, if they're criminals, but generally you want to let normal people leave. If they want to leave your jurisdiction, you let them leave. So your policy is checked by the opportunity to exit, you know, by the possibility of exit. So let's say, yeah, I mean, Singapore is a functional society, and let's say Holland is a functional society, and they have quite different laws. And yeah, and so, but both countries are checked by the opportunity and possibility of exit. So let's say around like a drug decriminalization, you know, you have like, let's say, Holland, so Netherlands, you have Portugal, and you have Singapore, which has a very, very strict drug policy. And but it's like also Balaji talks gives this example, like, so these like policy decisions, they're like sliders, you know. So you can have like it's not like either or, but it's like it's not a binary, but it's like a slider. So let's say Portugal has a different approach than Holland, and Singapore has a different approach, and probably they're also attracting different kinds of like elites or people who want to move there. But they're all three examples of functioning societies where there are actually a lot of digital nomads and a lot of high net worth individuals. And none of these countries has seen such a chaos as San Francisco, you know, like with street crime being legal, like burglaries and like car thefts and yeah. Yeah, so that's the idea. So it's about being smart regulator, you know. It doesn't mean like every country should have similar laws to the Dutch, you know, to the Netherlands or to Portugal or to Singapore. It's like up to the local citizens to decide, you know. So that's also the idea of fractal localism by Nassim Taleb, and it's like against this abstract universalism or this kind of monoculture. But at the end, it's like, do people want to move in or they want to move out, you know? And do more people want to move in than move out? So, and this is like the proof that the society is working ultimately.
That's a great point, Jakub. Let's move on. You also mentioned in your article that Balaji has a sci-fi scenario of American anarchy versus Chinese control. Maybe you can just, in a brief, elaborate on that and what does it mean for the future of the West?
Right. So yeah, just briefly, because yeah, I have to go soon to write the next article by the midnight, if I manage. Yeah, but yeah, so it's basically like just extrapolation of these like weak signals. That's also like what Balaji is doing. Like it's like the old establishment. He sees them as the opposite of venture capitalist or like the ideal venture, because the old establishment gets always surprised because they are unable to spot weak signals and some kind of events that can go vertical. So they are always surprised. Let's say the banking crisis is a surprise. The 2008 financial crisis is a surprise. What happened in Afghanistan with the American withdrawal, kind of chaotic withdrawal, was a surprise. And like with the just speaking concretely or specifically about the future, the sci-fi scenario of the American anarchy, it's like the extrapolation of the current trends, like the Gen 6, the BLM riots of 2020, and if these trends kind of continue and they go vertical or exponential. Or grow, let's say 10x, then you would get like this kind of scenario of American anarchy, and it's kind of supported by two movements that are operating on the network. As I said also at the beginning, it's like you have this woke kind of strange ideology of seeing people as victims, and it's kind of like this victimhood Olympics or oppression Olympics, and but it's a strange ideology because then it's kind of similar to what happened in Venezuela, because it's kind of the ultimate it's kind of giving like the free pass to criminals at the end. It's like and it's kind of anarcho-tyranny, the concept, and it's kind of punishing the wrong people. So when it's punishing the regular people, somebody is like writing some let's say a misunderstood comment on the internet, and the person might get unbanked, or some stupid comment or stupid joke on the internet, and you might get unbanked or unperson on the internet, but like the criminal who is breaking into your car walks like scot-free. So that's like one example, like this woke kind of ideology. And the second one, like with Bitcoin maximalism, if the movement gains steam, it's kind of like it's important to be. It's like Balaji says, we are all Bitcoin maximalists now, like in this banking crisis, but it also can be toxic. But in an extreme, it can be, it can lead into this like Mad Max world of like self-sufficiency and this kind of crypto-anarchy. So crypto-anarchy is better than anarchy, but crypto civilization is better than it's even better, says Balaji. So but these two movements are kind of, if they grow stronger, then they will pull the society or the political, on a political compass. They will pull it like the vector sum of their pull is like downwards. So it will be like downwards into more anarchy. So that's the idea. And the Chinese control is like the opposite idea and the opposite sci-fi scenario presented by Balaji. It's like there is some kind of perceived attempt or the coup d'etat attempt in China, and that was like, it's perceived that it was like supported by the West. Balaji says like there are also some books on this, like then the Chinese will kind of like clamp down on their civil society even much more vigorously than they have done so far, so maybe like 10 times more, and then they will unleash this kind of AI and drone armada and this AI surveillance machine that they have built. and at the end what will happen is like they will then export this technology to other countries, so that's like the Chinese control. It's like what John Robb calls the long night scenario. It's like it's like digital authoritarianism, or you can think about it like digital lockdowns. That's also what Balaji uses this term. So you have like the Mad Max world of, let's say, Bitcoin maximalism. You have like these digital lockdowns, or the long night kind of scenario of unleashed China and AI surveillance. And actually, there is a third one, just like to discuss the AI, crypto, and social. So the third one is social technologies, and so the Twitter maximalism here, it's like CCP, BTC, NYT. So the NYT kind of, or Twitter maximalism of unleashed Twitter maxis who try to virtue signal, to their, I don't know, fellow journalists. The end game here could be like what I call the nuclear Holocaust times, and it's basically just people going like YOLO. It's just like you live only once. It's just like, are you some kind of coward? Like what we should fight Russia. Like who cares? Something like Balaji talks about this as well. It's just like people are being kind of silly on Twitter. But there are like examples of these. Like, for example, one, there was this rocket that landed in Poland, and actually it was probably not from Ukraine but from Russia. It was just like some misunderstanding with the coordinates, like they were like exchanged. But people were like, so the Poland was attacked, so now we should attack Russia and stuff. But it's kind of like really dumb. Just virtue signaling on Twitter, because it's so dumb. It's so different from how this like nuclear brinkmanship worked during the Cold War. It's just like stupid people, because like they haven't experienced Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It was like back in the 45th, the year 1945, right?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, I wasn't born yet. No, but so many of these people, they were like, I don't know, they're boomers or Gen X or millennials, and they're just like don't remember how bad it can get. So this is like the third kind of scenario here. I mean, the nuclear Holocaust times, so like NYT, like the prestige press plus Twitter, like being unleashed can lead to this one. But the American anarchy, right, it can lead to this like woke kind of situation, like in San Francisco, or in the future maybe something like Mad Max kind of world, like also where the Bitcoin maxis and the crypto anarchists are like prevailing in some areas where the state just like became failed state, or some cities, right? And the third scenario is like this CCP or maximalism, or like this Chinese control, as Balaji calls it. And the positive, just to end up on a positive note, and he also calls about like the center, it's like the American anarchy, Chinese control, and international intermediate. So it's like the countries that even in Latin America, Africa, or something like India. Israel. The countries that experience like the volatility, they experience like inflation in their past, they experience like all these like chaos, and now they want to have some like more stable and peaceful times. So they're like in a different arc of their I don't know, their civilization. They're like in an upwards arc of their civilization, and they can be like these like mediators on these intermediates. Like, so India embracing crypto would be like one sign of this scenario happening.
Okay. That's a very great explanation, Jakub, about the two concepts of American anarchy and Chinese control. I think it's interesting to think about the future in such a way, also in terms of also the third aspect or the positive aspect of India coming in as a as a mediator or as a neutral country. Yeah, yeah, and Jakub, that is so inspiring, and thank you for joining me again today and for sharing your insight with the audience. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Duke. It was great talking to you. So take care and see you soon.
See you soon too. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. We hope you enjoyed the conversation with Jakub Simek. Please don't forget to subscribe, give this episode a thumbs up, and be sure to come back next week for another episode. Until then, this is Duke Mtambo, and don't forget to do good.